Hey there, folks. Well, I think this will be a first for this channel. I don't think I've ever done a video where Bigfoot, fairies, and ghosts are all mentioned. But to top all of that, I had never encountered a police report related to a missing person that mentions all of those things either. It's all rather unusual. As we go through this video, you'll see the context in which all of these things are mentioned. I'll burst the bubble right off the bat and say that none of these things appear to have had a hand in the disappearance we're going to talk about in this video. Although, I don't ultimately know what happened, so I could be wrong. Indeed, we are going to be talking about some strange things that occurred surrounding the search for Sandra Hughes back in 2020. You might even remember hearing about it as it did make some headlines, especially the ghost aspect of the case. You might remember that in July of 2020, we were right in the midst of the pandemic, and people were looking to get outside and into the mountains and forests. In that sense, it's no surprise that we see some unsolved disappearances that are around this time. That appears to be the reason that Sandra traveled out into the Sierra National Forest. She wanted to be alone, and she traveled to a location that rides right along the southern border of Yosemite National Park. Fortunately, we have a lot of detail regarding the events that led up to this incident, and we have quite a few sightings of the missing individual as well. So let's begin as we usually do, with a detailed overview of the disappearance of Sandra Hughes. But before we continue, I want to take a moment to thank ZocDoc for sponsoring this video. Have you ever experienced some new and strange symptom that popped up relating to your health, and the first thing you decide to do is ask the internet? I think we've all done something like that before. I can remember multiple times I've done that. Some late night nausea can lead you down quite a rabbit hole of doom and gloom. In fact, at some point I just had to make a deal with myself that I wouldn't look up symptoms on the internet anymore. But if you're anything like me, then you know that this tends to be a recipe for disaster, one that usually ends in a lot more stress or anxiety. That's why I want to present a much better alternative to the late night doom scroll. Instead of looking up symptoms and diagnosing yourself, you can book an appointment through today's video sponsor, ZocDoc. With ZocDoc, you can book an appointment with an actual doctor who can see you in the next day or two. That way you don't have to worry yourself with uncertainty. You can see an actual medical specialist. That's really the beauty of ZocDoc. You can find in-network doctors who are immediately available, and you can book that appointment right there on your own computer and even in the middle of the night. ZocDoc's website streamlines everything to make it quick and easy to find the doctor that's right for you. And best of all, none of this will cost you anything. You get access to a list of doctors in your area, ones that take your insurance, and you get access to their schedules so you can see what availability they have. And then you can pick a time that works best for you. And keep in mind, ZocDoc isn't used for just one type of care, it's for nearly all your healthcare needs. Whether that's mental health, dentistry, eye care, skin care, everything in between, you can search for help all in one place. Plus, ZocDoc helps you get appointments fast, typically within just 24 to 72 hours of booking, and you can even score same-day appointments. No need to call doctor's offices and wait on hold either. ZocDoc lets you do it all online. And again, it costs nothing. If you want to keep waiting on the phone to book an appointment, that's okay. But if you're willing to try something quicker and easier, something that's available in the middle of the night while you're looking up symptoms, then you should try ZocDoc. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/Enigma, or you can click the link in the description below to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. Thanks again to ZocDoc for sponsoring. Now let's get back to the video. Sandra Lynn Johnson Hughes was 54 years old in July of 2020. At the time, Sandra was technically unemployed. In the years prior to her disappearance, she had made some significant changes to her life. She had left her job working at a food co-op in Moscow, Idaho. She divorced her husband, and then she hit the road and began a sort of nomadic lifestyle. Despite always being on the move, she still kept in touch with her family, providing them occasional updates via email or phone call. Prior to her showing up in the Sierra National Forest, Sandra would work odd jobs here and there, depending on where she was in the country. Often she would work for room and board. She had recently purchased a 2001 Saab from one of her temporary employers, and in late June she acquired a lot of camping supplies and drove out into the Sierras at the tail end of June. Her goal, as far as we can tell, was just to find a place to get away from it all and spend some time alone. Her family was somewhat aware of her plans, and since Sandra was considered to be an experienced outdoor survivalist, nobody was really concerned that anything bad would happen to her. All of my research suggests that Sandra Hughes was never actually reported missing like you would typically see in a case like this. No family member called the authorities to say that she was overdue or anything of the sort. This is likely due to Sandra's nomadic lifestyle, to which her family had now become accustomed. Therefore, nobody would be especially shocked if they didn't hear from her for a while. Instead, the missing persons case, or search and rescue, kicks off because of a discovery made by a family recreating in the Sierra National Forest. On July 2, 2020, an unnamed individual called the Madera County Sheriff to report the discovery of an abandoned campsite off to the side of a rough forest road. The caller said that they were no longer in the area, which had no cell reception, and instead they were at their campsite. Dispatch told them to wait while they sent a couple of deputies out to take their statements. At around 8:45 a.m., two deputies, Chambers and Williams, arrived at the reporting party's campsite and found that it was a whole family who had been recreating in the area. The deputies spoke with a female who described what happened. She said that she and her family were in an off-road vehicle heading down Road 5S13, which is essentially just a rugged dirt path, when they came upon a remote and abandoned campsite in the trees. The camp was in complete disarray, with items strewn all over the place, and nobody was present in the area. The witness said she found a purple file folder on the ground that contained a birth certificate and a social security card that belonged to Sandra Hughes. She felt that everything about the find seemed a little bit suspicious. She also found receipts on the ground from an REI in Fresno, California that listed purchases for camping gear. The witness took some photographs of the campsite and then grabbed the folder of important documents for safekeeping. She then left the area so that she could report the discovery to the sheriff. The witness gave the deputies the folder of documents and also coordinates to the location of the campsite so that they could venture out there themselves and give the area a look. Both deputies began to head out to Road 5S13, but they quickly discovered that they could not reach the location in question. The road was being blocked by downed trees, and their vehicle was not built for the off-roading required to get to the campsite. In the meantime, Deputy Williams looked through the folder he was given. It contained the birth certificate, social security card, and some other papers. One of these papers had numerous names and phone numbers on it. Deputy Williams called one of these numbers and got a hold of a female whose name has been redacted. She said that she was the niece of Sandra. The deputy told her why he was calling, and the niece informed him that Sandra had been traveling around the States for the past year or so, and staying in multiple places along the way. She had no idea where Sandra was at the time, but she thought her mother, Sandra's sister, might know. A short time later, the niece called Deputy Williams back and said that she spoke to her mother, who said that she had last spoken to Sandra 6 days ago, on June 26th. Sandra also said that she was camping in the Sierras and was possibly going to be staying with a friend in Fresno while she waited for her vehicle registration to be transferred into her name. Sandra's niece was not sure what kind of car her aunt would be driving, but she thought it might be a Subaru or something similar. The niece also provided Deputy Williams with Sandra's phone number. Next, Deputy Williams contacted a U.S. Forest Service officer named Wise and briefed her on the incident. He then asked if she could take one of their vehicles to the coordinates in question and try to locate the campsite. Later, Officer Wise was able to get out to the camp and photograph it for the Madera County Sheriff. Unfortunately, photos of the untouched campsite were not in Madera County's case file for whatever reason. There are some low-res photographs of what might be the campsite after it was cleaned up, but it's not clear if that's at all correct. Officer Wise said that the items at the camp appeared to have been thrown out of a car which left the area. She said that nothing was set up and items were scattered all about the campsite. What we do have are photographs of the items that were found. After the site was cleaned up, all of the items and equipment were laid out on the pavement near the Oakhurst substation and inventoried. Among the items were a duffel bag, a sleeping bag, a bunch of clothes in a suitcase, jackets, boots, and some smaller items like jewelry were also found. There were a bunch of receipts from different grocery stores and retail businesses between June 19th and June 26th. A bunch of canned and dry goods were also found, but later thrown away. At this point, it was assumed by the authorities that Sandra Hughes was possibly missing or in danger, so flyers were created and posted online and in the local region. On July 4th, Deputy Williams had dispatch contact Verizon Wireless to have them try and ping Sandra's cell phone location. Verizon said that the cell phone was currently off or dead, and that based on historical data, the phone was last pinged on July 1st at around 11 a.m. The final ping indicated that the cell phone was at the abandoned campsite on July 1st. On July 5th, Deputy Williams received a call from a witness who had been camping at the Granite Creek campground at the end of June. This campground is roughly 17 road miles from Sandra's abandoned campsite. The witness said that they saw Sandra early in the morning on Monday, June 29th. She said that Sandra seemed to come out of nowhere and was wearing tan shorts, a green tank top, and flip-flops. She said that she thought it was odd because it was 30 degrees outside at the time and was surprised that Sandra was not wearing warmer clothing. She said that Sandra did not appear to be in distress or injured, nor did she ask for any help. Sandra just continued to walk through the campground, and the witness never interacted with her. Later in the day, Deputy Williams received another call from a witness who said that he was camping in the area with some friends, and that his friends had seen Sandra yesterday on July 4th near Mugler Creek. He said that his friends had found a camp that looked abandoned, with items strewn all over the place. They also saw Sandra's vehicle off to the side of the road on 5S13, and it was tucked away in some trees so that it was not visible from the roadway. According to his friends, Sandra just smiled and waved at them as they went by. Deputy Williams asked the man if his friends had marked the location of the vehicle with their GPS. The man said that they did, but that his friends were out on a ride at the moment, so he couldn't get them. Later on, the same man called back and said that he had just seen Sandra and her car again near Red Top Mountain on Road 5S70. This area is further north and near Madera County's border with Yosemite National Park. Deputy Williams immediately called Officer Wise and asked her if she could head back to Sandra's campsite and see if she had returned there. Officer Wise drove out to the site, but nobody was there. Afterwards, she drove up to the point where Sandra was last seen on 5S70 to look around a bit. While there, she was flagged down by a man on a quad who said that he knew where Sandra's vehicle was located. Officer Wise followed him to some switchbacks where she discovered Sandra's vehicle off the road and down an embankment. She then spoke with the man on the quad to hear his story. The man said that he spoke with Sandra the day prior, on July 4th, and asked if she needed any help, but she declined any assistance. The man said that Sandra had some minor scratches, but otherwise appeared to be okay. Feeling concerned for her safety, he returned the next day, July 5th, and went to the crash site, but he couldn't find Sandra anywhere. He had been driving up and down the roads in the area looking for her when he ran into Officer Wise. Upon inspection of Sandra's vehicle, it was immediately noticeable that the front end had damage consistent with striking something, perhaps a tree. Next to the car was a folding camping chair with numerous tissue-type papers lying nearby. A pair of sandals was also lying on the hood of the vehicle. The scene is odd, to say the least. It's unknown if Sandra purposefully put the car in this position, or if it was the result of an accident. The chair seems to indicate she took a moment to sit and maybe relax or at least consider the position she was in. A search of Sandra's vehicle was conducted later. It was noted that the trunk of the car was very well organized. There were white and clear stackable drawers that contained clothing items, as well as 2 green metal drawers also containing clothing. There were several Ziploc bags containing clothes, food, and fire-starting supplies. The trunk of the car also had used cooking pots, with at least one pot containing cooked oatmeal. There was also a small camping stove, a blue water container filled with water, and a large bag of what appeared to be a seed and grain mixture, possibly used as food. There was also a large pack of Signature brand napkins and Equate brand contact solution. In the back seat, there were several large translucent bags containing various items such as a book, LED solar lanterns, porta-wipes, a solar power supply, and an empty spray bottle with the name Sandy written on it. In the front seats, there were several documents in the glove box, including a Les Schwab invoice from June 25th. Most of those documents were photographed by deputies. On July 6th, Deputy Williams took a 4x4 team up to Road 5S70 to check out Sandra's vehicle and look for some additional evidence. The team canvassed the steep area all day, but couldn't find anything relevant to the case. A canine team had tracked Sandra's scent down towards Longmeadow, where it stopped abruptly. Here, they performed another search, but again, nothing was found. On July 7th, Deputy Williams was contacted by an out-of-state search and rescue team that was hired by Sandra's family. The team traveled to Madera County to assist in the search, and they brought a number of off-road vehicles as well. The team found Sandra's abandoned car and began searching the region. Later, they told Deputy Williams that they had heard that an Asian couple had seen Sandra in the area and asked her if she needed any help, but Sandra simply said no and ran off into the woods. There was no other information about the Asian couple who had this sighting. Later in the day, a new witness contacted Deputy Williams and said that he was camping in the area and saw a social media post about Sandra Hughes being missing. He said that on July 3rd, his group was off-roading on Road 5S70 around 2:30 to 3 p.m. Their group rode all the way up to Red Top and were beginning to make their way back down when they saw a woman standing in Brophy Meadow, just below the top of the road. She was wearing a bright, multicolored hippie-style dress or skirt and a t-shirt. As they passed her by, she waved at them, but also kept her head down. The man thought that she appeared to be happy and not in any distress. The group continued on down the hill about a quarter mile and came across the car hidden down the embankment. Later on, when they were all back at camp, a member of the group was scrolling through their social media when they saw information being spread about Sandra Hughes being missing in the area. The witness looked at the picture on the posting and immediately recognized Sandra as the person they had seen in the meadow off of 5S70. The group then decided to contact authorities about the sighting. Afterwards, Deputy Williams organized a full search party to head out to Brophy Meadow to refocus the search for Sandra. Also on July 7th, a Sergeant Weaver with the Madera County Sheriff's Office made contact with the registered owner of the vehicle that Sandra had been driving, a 2001 Saab. The name of this witness has been redacted, just like every other name in this case file. The witness told Sergeant Weaver that she sold Sandra the car, but the title change had not gone through yet. She said that she owns and runs an organic farm where she allows people to work, and in return, workers are allowed free room and board. Sandra Hughes had been employed in this fashion and stayed to work on the farm for roughly 6 weeks. Afterwards, Sandra left for Hawaii. Sergeant Weaver told her that Sandra was now missing in the Sierra National Forest. The witness said that she had not had any recent contact with Sandra, and she also thought that Sandra was very close with her family and would have contacted them by this point if she were able to. The witness had never known Sandra to be the type of person who might harm herself, and said that she always appeared to be happy. Moving on, Deputy Williams also received an email on this day from a woman saying that she had information regarding Sandra. The deputy contacted the woman by phone, where she told him that she was with a girlfriend on July 3rd, and the two were driving up Road 5S70 while scouting for hunting season. As they were moving along, they came across a vehicle that was coming down the hill. The woman said that the group of people in this car appeared to be nervous, though she doesn't give any more details about why she thought that. Apparently, both vehicles stopped and she was able to talk with this group of nervous people. The woman said that as she was talking to them, they told her about a female up towards the top of the road that was barefoot and carrying a bag of clothes, and there appeared to be a tent on the side of the hill. The group said that they tried to talk to her and see if she was okay, but according to the group, the female refused any assistance from them. They did say that the female appeared to have a large bruise on the side of her face. The witness told the group to contact law enforcement when they got back into cell phone reception, but it's unknown if they did. Afterwards, the two cars went their separate ways, and the witness and her friend continued moving up the road, but now they started looking for the possibly injured female. Unfortunately, they saw no sign of her, nor did they find any sign of a tent on the side of the road. The witness did find a pair of sandals in the meadow where the group had seen the injured female. She said that she picked up the sandals and drove them back down to Sandra's vehicle. She left the sandals next to the car, thinking that the female might come back for them. Sometime afterward, it appears that the sandals made their way onto the hood of Sandra's car, but it's not clear how that happened. On July 9th, the search area was increased around Sandra's vehicle and the place where she was last seen near Brophy Meadow. 4x4 teams drove all the roads in the area looking for campers and hikers who might have seen Sandra. Tracks were found in a few different places, but it wasn't much help because they didn't know the type of shoe Sandra was wearing or even her shoe size. In fact, some reports indicated Sandra was barefoot when last seen. Besides that, nothing relevant was found during this time. 5 days later, on July 12th, a Deputy Cox began contacting numerous family members and friends of Sandra. One of her friends told Deputy Cox that she had not spoken to Sandra since May of 2019 because of some strange statements Sandra had made to her. She said that at some point in 2017, Sandra went on a retreat with a type of New Age cult group. When she came back from the trip, she was talking about Bigfoot and fairies. Sandra's friend said that Sandra continued going on similar retreats with the group, who is associated with a YouTube channel called Naya's Corner of the Universe. The deputy notes in his report that this YouTube channel was also mentioned by another member of Sandra's family. Sandra's friend said that after Sandra became involved with the group, she left her husband and her belongings and moved away to live with someone else. And while living with this other friend, Sandra was working to turn an old school bus into a camper and would send periodic pictures of their progress. Sandra's friend told Deputy Cox that she began to distance herself from Sandra because of her sudden change in lifestyle and behavior. The YouTube channel referenced by this witness, Naya's Corner of the Universe, is or was run by a woman named Naya. From what I can tell, she passed away, and there has not been any postings for a few years. It appears that Naya was someone who claimed to have had a near-death experience, which gave her a new outlook on life, or maybe gave her special powers or knowledge about the universe. This is where Sandra's culty behavior began, according to her friend. The witness who spoke to Deputy Cox also sent him some emails about this cult group that Sandra was involved with. Apparently, they would go to some retreats called Soul Play. There seem to be a number of different events or organizations that bear that name, so I don't know which one they went to or if it even still exists. Regardless, they all seem to have that New Age spiritualism kind of vibe. Anyway, Sandra's friend said that while Sandra was in this cult group, they had her drink or smoke some sort of hallucinogenic drug. After Sandra did that, she changed in a significant way. This is all according to her friend. Sandra relayed seeing Bigfoot creatures which were trying to communicate with her. Sandra also said that the group would go hunting for mushrooms up on Moscow Mountain in Moscow, Idaho, and that she would sneak Bigfoot little presents and look for arrows that he, Bigfoot, would leave her. Sandra's friends seemed to indicate that Sandra never told her then husband about any of this. Still, after Sandra returned from the trip, she apparently became very sick, and she started seeing different faces when she looked into the mirror. Sandra's friend also said that the two went to pick huckleberries during this time, and Sandra talked about how fairies were playing tricks on them. According to her friend, Sandra was never the same again. The next person that Deputy Cox contacted was Sandra's sister. She said that she hadn't heard from Sandra recently, but she knew that Sandra had traveled to Hawaii and worked on a farm while she was there. She said that when Sandra returned from Hawaii, she quarantined herself due to the COVID-19 pandemic, and Sandra was afraid she might catch the illness. By that time, Sandra had been traveling around for about a year. Sandra's sister said that she divorced her husband in 2018 and then began traveling around and working, but would also check in regularly with family members to give them updates. If the family hadn't heard from Sandra in a while, they could count on her to respond via email fairly quickly. According to the sister, Sandra attended a survival course in Wisconsin, and in order to pass, she had to survive in the forest for 2 weeks. She said that Sandra was an avid outdoorswoman and would backpack and camp frequently. Deputy Cox then contacted one of Sandra's friends who was an ex-co-worker. The two used to work together in financing at the food co-op in Moscow, Idaho. This friend said that Sandra had come to live with her after divorcing her husband in 2018. During that time, she went through some lifestyle changes like changing her diet, dyeing her hair, and hanging out with a new group of women. Sandra also quit her job and then began going through a lot of money. She told Deputy Cox that Sandra had texted her on June 24th and told her that she was heading to Fresno, California. Finally, Deputy Cox contacted Sandra's brother, who said that he had received a lot of information about Sandra's disappearance, and he thought that none of it seemed like things she would do. He said that she would never leave trash on the ground, and she was very conscientious in that way. He also said that he was concerned that she might have some sort of brain injury, like a tumor or something. He stated that he last spoke with Sandra on June 20th, and she seemed very normal at the time. She talked to him about possibly going to Santa Barbara, but she wasn't sure. Sandra's brother said that he had vacationed with her during the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019. During that time, he said that he met her friend, but this person's name has been redacted. We can reasonably infer that this individual is Naya from the YouTube channel previously mentioned, because she told Sandra's brother that she had a revelation after a near-death experience. The brother felt that this woman, likely Naya, was taking advantage of Sandra. He said that Sandra later told him that the two had gone their separate ways, but he doesn't give a time frame for this statement. He told Deputy Cox that Sandra had a few minor health issues, such as gallbladder surgery and digestive problems, which he believed were related to her sudden change in diet, something suggested to her by Naya. Deputy Cox sums up his interviews by noting that there was never any mention of past mental health issues from any family or friends. He also acknowledges that in the last couple of years, Sandra exhibited some drastic behavioral changes like divorce, diet, quitting her job, and leaving all of her belongings, which was triggered by her going on these New Age retreats and meeting this woman, Naya. On July 13th, as the search for Sandra continued, a sleeping bag was found in the area north of Red Top. Whether or not this bag had anything to do with Sandra is uncertain. As a bit of an aside, this sleeping bag would be left in the spot where it was found for a little over 2 years. Deputies would not go back out to gather this potential evidence until July 30th of 2022. They said that despite 2 years in the elements, the bag was in relatively good condition, though small critters had ripped the outer layer. The goal was to have the bag DNA tested, but I have seen no results related to such testing. There is no explanation given as to why this bag would be left out there for so long. Moving back to our original timeline, on July 14th, while on routine patrol, a deputy discovered some bone fragments near Portuguese Creek. They were discovered under an old burnt-out tree near a marshy meadow. Photos were taken of the discovery, and bones were bagged and moved to the nearest substation. A pathologist later determined that the bones were not those of a human being. From July 8th to the 19th, search teams scoured the area where Sandra Hughes was last seen with 4x4 teams and a horse team, searching roughly 120 square miles of forest, wilderness, and roads. Numerous clues and evidence were located from the vehicle leading north towards Yosemite National Park. In fact, Yosemite Search and Rescue assisted on the ground on their side of the boundary line. The Air National Guard provided air support and night search capabilities for 3 days, and helicopter support for 12 days. The night searching focused on the area where the sleeping bag was found. During the 3-day night search, they used thermal and FLIR but did not locate anyone in the area, or around Sandra's campsite or vehicle. The 12-day air search was similarly unsuccessful, but also helped by airlifting ground searchers to difficult-to-reach terrain. During the search, a number of items were found. The authorities were fairly certain that some of them belonged to Sandra, while others couldn't be confirmed. Overall, the authorities seemed skeptical that Sandra could have made it into Yosemite, especially if she had no shoes on. Other areas in the region seemed impassable as well due to mass amounts of loose soil and rock. The formal search for Sandra ended on the 19th. She was still missing. On August 13th, the Madera County Sheriff posted an update on their Facebook page stating that there had been a recent sighting of Sandra Hughes on August 9th, just a few days prior. The post stated that the sighting took place near Portuguese Creek and that she was seen wearing overalls and a floral shirt. It is said that she was simply standing by a pine tree and drinking water. Strangely, this sighting is not recorded in Madera County's case file, but it will come back up roughly 2 years later. We will get to that shortly. About a month after the end of the search, on August 14th, Madera County received a report from a woman who worked at a Dollar Tree in Oakhurst. The employee was contacted by phone and she said that she thought she saw Sandra Hughes at the Dollar Tree on August 12th, 2 days prior. They said that Sandra was in the checkout lane and wearing dark blue coveralls and a rust-colored shirt with flowers on it. The employee had read a Facebook post about Sandra being missing and noted that the woman she saw appeared to be Sandra, but that she had lost weight. Notably, she also says that she did not remember her face, which tends to be kind of important when identifying people. A deputy was sent out to the Dollar Tree to attempt to view surveillance footage from August 12th. The deputy spoke with the store manager who allowed access to his camera systems. The female, who was possibly Sandra, was seen on camera at around 2:26 p.m. entering the checkout lane. Unfortunately, the female had a mask on due to the pandemic. The deputy notes that this woman appeared to be with an elderly female as well. The woman pictured on the surveillance camera was never identified. Also around this time, Madera County received a report of another rather vague sighting, this one in Upper Granite Creek. The reporting party said that she believed she saw Sandra hiking in the area. She said that Sandra was wearing shorts, a shirt of unknown color, and a small backpack. She said that Sandra was smiling and looked quite healthy. No other information was provided on this sighting. On November 16, 2020, deputies finally called for Sandra's vehicle to be towed from Road 5S70 after it had been sitting there for months. The battery was dead by this time, but after charging it, the vehicle started right up. The keys to the car had been left on the driver's seat. The car was winched up out of the embankment, and a deputy drove it to Beesore Road, where it was eventually towed away. By March of 2021, the case had pretty much gone cold. The sheriff's office tracked down Sandra's dentist back in Idaho and arranged to have her x-rays sent to the department. This way they would have something on file if Sandra's bones were ever found. On July 26th of 2021, news stories began to be published out of California regarding an odd incident that was possibly related to the disappearance of Sandra Hughes. A family from California, the Gorbas, told reporters that they experienced a strange ghost-like sighting near Shut-Eye Peak, just south of where Sandra's campsite and vehicle were located. It stated that Jake Gorba, his wife, and their 3 children had taken their four-wheeler up to Shut-Eye Peak for some summer fun. During that time, they stopped somewhere for lunch when the couple's 3-year-old son, Caden, began talking to someone. Jake's wife, Victoria, said that Caden was pointing out to a certain spot in the meadow. He told his parents that there was a woman lying face down with her legs straight up in the air. He also said that the woman was unable to speak or move and needed help. The quote from Victoria goes as follows. He, Caden, goes, "Yeah, there's a lady over there in the meadow in a black shirt, and I got goosebumps." He says, "She needs our help, but she's dead, and she's lying face down with her legs up, and she can't talk to me, but she's over there. We need to go help her." Jake and Victoria looked around the meadow for any sign of a woman in distress, but they found nothing. Caden kept telling his parents to trust him and that he was certain he encountered a woman in the meadow. The family was so frightened by the incident that they ended their day early and went home. They then posted about their strange encounter on Facebook. Victoria said, "We put it on Facebook to see if anybody knew anything about the area, and come to find out that there was a lady missing with the description that he described to us within a 5-mile radius of where we were." According to Victoria, Caden's detailed description of the woman's hair and clothing were identical to the description of Sandra Hughes. She said, "He was very adamant that we needed to help her, and he described her down to her blue hair. He said, 'She has a black shirt, blue jeans, and blue hair, Mom,' and that's the exact description of her when she went missing." Victoria said that Caden was also able to identify Sandra when shown multiple photographs of her. The following day, Madera County deputies contacted the family and they all returned to the meadow where the sighting occurred. The family showed the deputies around a bit, but no new evidence was discovered. Victoria said, "If she was possibly a ghost looking for some help, I hope that he could have at least helped and maybe helped the family find her, because it's been a long time apparently since she's been gone." Having seen this news article when it came out in 2021, I was always curious what Madera County deputies wrote about it in their own report. Fortunately, they did document the incident, so let's go over what they had to say about it. On July 21st, 2021, at 7 p.m., the Madera County Sheriff's Office received information via Facebook Messenger about a possible sighting of Sandra in the Shut-Eye Peak area. A deputy contacted Jake Gorba about a post he had put up on Facebook about his son seeing or claiming to see a woman in the forest while they were out on a four-wheel drive adventure. Jake said that he and his family had stopped in a meadow to eat lunch when his son approached them and pointed across the field, saying that there was a woman over there who needed help. Jake went to go check the area, but he didn't see anything. Jake told the deputy that he thinks that his son may have seen a spirit of the missing woman from last summer, meaning Sandra Hughes. The deputy said that he would look into it. A search party was sent into the area near Shut-Eye Peak where the sighting occurred. The goal was just to look around a bit. A day later, the deputy suggested using cadaver dogs in the area, but his request was denied. Apparently, he was told that the dogs would not be useful. Either way, this particular sighting stirred up numerous requests to Madera County, asking them to look into this incident, and specifically asking them to use cadaver dogs, which were never used. On August 20th, Deputy Williams was working a motorcycle patrol in the Sierra National Forest. His report indicates that after the news article was published about the child possibly seeing a spirit in the woods near Shut-Eye Peak, the Sheriff's Department received a call from a paranormal investigation group that requested to go out to the area and use their equipment and a spirit medium. The paranormal investigators went to Shut-Eye Peak around August 1st, and during their investigation, the medium received information that Sandra Hughes would possibly be located off of Forest Road 23E351 in a shallow grave. The information relayed to the sheriff's office states that Sandra was seen with a male subject that was described as a dark man. It's unknown if the male was also a spirit or an actual living person. The medium said that she saw this dark man carrying Sandra over his shoulder down the road and then burying her in a shallow grave. Now bringing us back up to date on August 20th, Deputy Williams began riding down Road 23E351 to look for this shallow grave where Sandra was supposedly buried. He encountered numerous downed trees blocking the road and was able to ride around most of them, which took him deeper into the Sierras. Deputy Williams stopped at 3 different creek crossings and walked up and down both sides of the road along these creeks for several hundred yards. On some, the terrain was too steep or unstable to move around properly. This entire area was also within the burn scar of the Creek Fire, which burned hundreds of thousands of acres in this region during the last months of 2020. The burned-out land made it difficult for the deputy to locate any disturbances in the ground that might be suggestive of a shallow grave. After the search, Deputy Williams advised the paranormal investigators that he checked out their lead and had negative results. The next year, on June 13, 2022, a Deputy Chambers met to speak with a male witness who had found a bone on the Chiquito Lakes Trail. This area is right near the place where Sandra's car was found and where she was last seen. The man said that the day prior he was on horseback riding with his dog near Chiquito Lake. On the way back to his car around 4:30 p.m., he noticed his dog had something in its mouth. Once the dog dropped it, he realized it was a bone, and he felt as though it was human. Deputy Chambers went to go check the trail along with Officer Wise and a canine. They located the bone around a quarter mile up the trail and photographed it. As they moved further up, the canine discovered another bone not far from the original one. This one was long and skinny. More photographs were taken and then sent off to be analyzed. The bones were deemed to be not human. On June 24th, 2022, the Madera County Sheriff's Office spoke with a man named Jory from Belgium who wanted to talk with somebody working the Sandra Hughes case. Apparently, he had seen a video posted on YouTube by Mr. Ballin, and he became interested in the case. He said that he reached out to a medium he had used in the past, and she provided some insight into where Sandra's body would be located. He said that Sandra was located near Red's Peak in Yosemite, and that she was murdered by a serial killer who lives in the area and works at a local convenience store. The email correspondence is contained in the case file, and the deputy writing to Jory makes the valid argument that Sandra's vehicle was located 16 miles from Red Peak, and that the hike would mostly be uphill. He says that for someone to carry another person that kind of distance without being seen would be nearly impossible, and I would have to wholeheartedly agree. The deputy also argues that it makes very little sense for someone to carry a body so far just to try and hide it when there are countless hiding places in the vast Sierra National Forest. He also says that it would be difficult to send a search party up there to look, and it would likely require a helicopter drop-in. The deputy clearly makes some valid points here. It's all fine and good to listen to psychic theories as to what happened and possibly investigate them, but only if they seem remotely reasonable. Jory writes in response to the deputy that he returned to the medium to further refine the location of Sandra's body. This is convenient. You get something obviously wrong, so you start moving the goalpost. Let's read what he had to say. I have some really great news for the family regarding Sandra Hughes. We investigated further down the lines of the nearby peaks to pinpoint the exact location of her body. We felt like we should narrow it down to a very remote location so it can be very easy to see and identify which location. And as we struggled and sighed and huffed and puffed, we found the exact location that was described from the first session. We feel like the body is there, exactly where I've described it could be. It makes sense now with the dogs that the trail could have ended near and close to where her body should be. The killer definitely thought this out. This case is also linked towards a small boy or girl that was killed very long ago. The well kept popping up because that boy or girl was killed inside of a well, and the killer just got away with it. We're not sure where we can find that exact well, and time prevents us from the other side to meddle with it since the killer will admit to all of the killing he has done in time. Whenever you're catching him, he'll admit to all of the murders. He lives very near of that well from what we sensed. Since that was his first kill, so we're speaking of a serial killer and he's preparing for another victim. He's targeting mostly women inside this area, but he could also be capable of boys or men. It's a serial killer in the sense of he gets a thrill for the hunt or a thrill for the killings, and so he doesn't get rid of the bodies because he sees them as a trophy or bounty. So in the first session we talked about Red Peak Center Point, and we started to narrow it down from there, going west, south, north, east, until we found ourselves near Gray Peak. It goes on, but we can stop. Sometimes I really dislike psychics. Everything about that email is just ridiculous. From the start, where he acts like this is some great favor for Sandra's family, and then talking about a serial killer being in the area, providing no names of past victims or dates or times or anything at all, just conjecture with nothing backing it up, and then acting like it's a fact. He does later give a description of the supposed serial killer, a man of average height, not tall but not tiny. He has a jacket made out of fabric with green stitching. He's kind of militaristic, but not in the military, and she was killed near her car. The area where Jory says Sandra's body is located is still over 10 miles from where she was last seen, as the crow flies. To actually walk there is probably much longer than that. And don't forget, the killer would be carrying a 150-pound body the entire way. Simply ridiculous. Jory did provide an image of the location of Sandra's body to lead the deputy to the right location. He says, "As you'll see in the picture, this killer wanted to make it look like she fell or been in an accident of sorts." He says that they, meaning himself and the medium, can't actually do anything about the serial killer because they cannot interfere with time. Well, thank God for that, I guess. He also sent in quite a few zoomed-in pictures in which he says you can actually see the body. Here is a picture where he actually points it out. I'm guessing this is supposed to be a person wearing blue jeans and a light blue shirt or something. But this is obviously a picture of nothing. The blue you see is just some chromatic aberration that's occurring because this is an area of high contrast. You might have noticed that Jory completely ignores the same aberration in the lower right corner, right here. I'm a little disappointed that he doesn't try to explain this away by saying that this is someone wearing a blue gimp suit while in the fetal position. Fortunately, there is no indication that the sheriff's office wasted time or resources on this wild goose chase, and the deputy was very kind in his responses to this individual, saying that the area was almost inaccessible by foot and would be a multi-day trip. It's so easy to just point to a place on Google Maps and think that a killer would or could somehow carry a body there, but the reality on the ground is always so much different. Anyway, let's move on from this. On August 20th, 2022, 3 members of the Madera County Search and Rescue Team went back to where Sandra's car was found to perform a renewed search in the region. They completed their goal and left the area. Afterwards, they stopped by a local business called Jones Store and began to talk with some of the area residents. One of these people hanging around the store said that he had seen Sandra just after the initial search ended. One of the SAR members asked him where he was, and the man provided the following account. He said that he was with a friend scouting for deer season around August 9th, 2020. At the time, they were driving back out to Beesore Road. While on Road 5S46Y, and yes, I know the road names are overly complicated, the duo made a turn onto Road 5S01, where they noticed a female right on the corner standing near a tree as they passed by. The witness said that the female was wearing blue jeans and a long-sleeved checkered or multicolored shirt. The witness said that he did not recognize her at first, but later he recalled the missing woman from the flyers he had seen in the area. He said that the female he saw was definitely Sandra Hughes. The SAR member got the man's phone number so that a deputy could call him later. Now, this specific sighting might sound a bit familiar. It is the same person who reported seeing Sandra around Portuguese Creek on August 9th. While Madera County did make a Facebook post days after the sighting, inside their own case file, this appears to be the first time this sighting is actually mentioned. On August 24th, Deputy Williams, who had been on this case from the very beginning, gave this witness a call to get more details on his sighting. The witness said that he was scouting on Road 5S01 and that he had never been on that road prior to that. He said that the woman he recognized as Sandra Hughes was walking on the side of the road. To him, she appeared skinny and she was carrying a Starbucks bottle with water in it. He said that she gave him an odd wave as they passed by. Immediately, he felt that the interaction was strange because you don't typically see hikers in this region due to a lack of good scenery and poor terrain. After the interaction, the duo left the area and drove to a place where they had cell phone reception. When they got it, they looked up a picture of Sandra Hughes on the internet. The witness said that he was 99% sure that the female he saw was Sandra Hughes. When asked if he could recall anything else about the woman, the man said that he remembered her smile and her teeth showing, and that her teeth were not straight. More searches were conducted in the following years, and likely still occur on an intermittent basis, and possibly for training purposes. No new clues have been found in the original search area, and the investigation into Sandra Hughes' disappearance remains cold to this day. Her case remains open at the Madera County Sheriff's Office. Okay, so currently this is the gist of everything there is to know about this case. It's quite a bit, and I don't think I've ever seen a case where the missing individual was spotted by so many people in the area where they went missing. It does benefit us quite a bit though, because we can start to develop a timeline of the disappearance. And since we had a lot of witnesses in this case and all their names were redacted, I will be giving them letters instead. Now, some things I can't include in a timeline because we don't have enough information. For example, a private SAR worker told a deputy he spoke to an Asian couple who had seen Sandra in the area, but there is no time or date information regarding this sighting. There's also certain sightings that can't logically fit in the timeline. I believe this is mostly due to the witness misremembering a date or a deputy writing it down wrong. For example, one witness said that they saw Sandra and her vehicle at her camp on Road 5S13 on July 4th. But that seems impossible because her car was seen stuck down on Road 5S70 later in the day on July 3rd. Now, this probably just means that the date was incorrect. The sighting of Sandra at her campsite likely occurred on July 3rd. So these are the kinds of things we will encounter. I will still include this in the timeline with the corrected date, but I will note that the correction was made as we go through. Anyway, let's gather together all of the stuff we know and put it together into a more easily digestible progression of events. June 20th. Sandra speaks with her brother over the phone. Everything seems completely normal, and she talked about possibly going to Santa Barbara, California, but she wasn't sure. June 24th. A friend and co-worker texts with Sandra who says that she is heading to Fresno, California. June 26th. Sandra speaks with her sister on the phone. She says that she is planning to camp in the Sierras. June 29th. Early in the morning, Witness A sees Sandra walking through the Granite Creek campground. The witness says that she did not appear to be distressed or injured, but they were surprised she wasn't wearing warmer clothing. July 1st. Sandra's cell phone is pinged to a cell tower for the final time, indicating her phone dies around 11 a.m. this day. The distance of the ping suggests that Sandra was at her makeshift campsite off of Road 5S13. July 2nd. Around 8 a.m., Witness B is off-roading with their family on Road 5S13. They discover Sandra's campsite on the side of the road, and then they report it to police who find a bunch of garbage strewn about, and also some of Sandra's important personal documents. July 3rd. Witness C reports seeing Sandra at her campsite off of 5S13. He says that her vehicle is tucked away in the woods so that it's not visible from the roadway. They say that Sandra smiled and waved as they went by. Originally, this witness said that this sighting occurred on July 4th, but that wouldn't fit with the rest of the timeline because Sandra's vehicle will be disabled later this day. If this sighting is at all accurate, it means that Sandra drove back to her campsite after the authorities had already found it. Around 2:30 to 3 p.m., Witness D is off-roading with a group on Road 5S70 and reports seeing a woman standing in Brophy Meadow, and it appears to be Sandra Hughes. She's wearing a multicolored dress or skirt and a t-shirt. She waves to them as they pass by, but also keeps her head down. As the group continues down the hill, they find Sandra's vehicle hidden on an embankment. At some point on this day, Witness E is with their girlfriend scouting Road 5S70 for hunting season. While driving up the road, they encounter another group in a vehicle. The group says that they saw a woman, presumably Sandra Hughes, near Red Top who was barefoot and carrying a bag of clothes. The group offered to help her, but she denied assistance. They say that the woman had a bruise on her face as well. Witness E then continues up the road looking for an injured female, but instead they only find a pair of sandals. They grab the sandals and leave them near Sandra's car that is stuck on the embankment. July 4th. Witness F encounters Sandra and she is walking on Road 5S70. He asks her if she needs any assistance and she declines. He said that she had some minor scratches but otherwise appeared okay. July 5th. Witness C calls the authorities. He tells them that he has just seen Sandra and her car again, but she was near Red Top Mountain on Road 5S70. Later, Officer Wise discovers Sandra's vehicle down an embankment on Road 5S70, and finally the search begins in this critical region. August 9th. A witness says that he was with a friend scouting for deer while driving back to Beesore Road when they saw a woman walking on the roadside that appeared to be Sandra Hughes. August 12th. An employee at a Dollar Tree in Oakhurst contends that she saw Sandra Hughes come into the store on this day, but the woman was wearing a mask and impossible to identify fully. Okay, so based on that timeline, we can get some sort of understanding of what happened in the days leading up to Sandra Hughes' disappearance. Things seem normal towards the end of June, and Sandra is in communication with her family, telling them where she is going and what she plans on doing. She made it into the Sierras on June 29th, as she was seen walking through a campground, but she was still 17 miles from where she would set up her own campsite. This is right around the time that things start to get a little weird. She builds a makeshift campsite off an obscure forest road. She probably thought nobody would find her there, but people did see her. She acted fairly normal when people went by since she waved at them, but at the same time we know that something is off. Her camp was riddled with garbage and equipment, something her family says she would never do. They said that Sandra always tried to be a steward of the land, never littering. So she was camping off-grid, littering, and eventually her phone died and she made no attempt to recharge it. During this time, one witness saw Sandra at her makeshift campsite with her car tucked into the woods. When I read that, I wondered how in the heck Sandra got her car in there. The witness was using an off-road vehicle, and when the sheriff's deputy tried to drive to the campsite, he couldn't because he didn't have a good enough car. He then had to call someone with specialized equipment. So Sandra must have driven her car down that road and beat the heck out of it while doing that, which only adds to the idea that she was starting to lose her mind a little bit. Then, on or around July 3rd, she moves from Road 5S13 and abandons the campsite in order to travel up to Road 5S70 towards Red Top. During this time, she may have hit a tree or something based on the damage to her car. Eventually, the vehicle gets stuck by sliding down the embankment. It's unclear if Sandra did this purposefully or accidentally while trying to back up. Either way, after her car is disabled, she gets out and starts wandering around. She seems to linger around this area for the next 2 or 3 days. The chair next to the car indicates that she might have spent some time just sitting around her vehicle, maybe even returning to it periodically. Ultimately, she is last seen on July 5th, and then she disappears. All indications are that she began to walk north towards Yosemite, but we have no idea what kind of equipment she was carrying. A lot of items were found during the search, but it's unclear how many of them actually belonged to Sandra. As for the 2 sightings that occurred in August, I don't place much stock in them. The one at the Dollar Tree is almost meaningless to me as the person was wearing a mask. As for the sighting at Portuguese Creek, this man seemed to be quite sure that he had seen Sandra. The authorities were going to give the man a photo lineup to see if he could identify Sandra Hughes, but they never got around to it. It appears that this happened mainly because the authorities had no photos of Sandra that weren't already publicly available. The problem is that this sighting occurred far later than any of the others in this area. If it was Sandra, I would expect her clothes to be dirty and tattered by this point. Having been living in the woods for weeks, I would expect she would appear quite rough. Instead, the sighting sounded more like an unidentified woman who was just walking near a popular overlook. So, did this man see Sandra walking on a road in August? Maybe, but it's unlikely. There's just nothing else to back it up. And that fully sums up what we know about her potential movements. I think a lot of people were surprised when this case made headlines in 2020. How could so many people see this woman and still she disappears without a trace? There were a few key problems with this case that made searching for her difficult. First, nobody actually reported Sandra missing. Her campsite was found abandoned, and it was at that point that the authorities realized there might be somebody in trouble, but they don't know for sure. People have a right to live an off-grid or nomadic lifestyle if they want, so how are the authorities to know that this person really needs a full search party out combing the mountains? Once the car was found disabled, and more reports and sightings came in, it became clear that something was not right here. Unfortunately, searchers were always a day or 2 behind Sandra in terms of her movements. Most reported sightings came in a day or 2 after they actually happened, if not longer. By the time the large-scale search occurred in the region around her car, Sandra was already long gone. This case has a lot of indications that mental health was the key issue at play. I know the family has said that she was acting normal right up until the end of June when communication ceased, but at the same time that doesn't really fit with everything else that they were saying. In the prior few years, Sandra made some drastic changes to her life, including her thinking. She left her old normal life behind and started talking about Bigfoot and fairies and hanging around with some New Age cult guru. So there is a clear indication of a slow but steady mental decline that took place over years and culminated in her eventual disappearance in the Sierra National Forest. Now, that is not to say that there aren't a lot of questions still, because there are. Whenever anyone isn't found in a search like this, we have to ask ourselves why. Well, this forest, and more specifically the Yosemite area, is very rugged. A lot of people go missing here, and quite a few are never found. This likely has a lot to do with the makeup of the terrain. Lots of rocks and granite, lots of cracks and crevices, endless thick woodland. There are a lot of places a body can hide. We don't know what Sandra was capable of physically, and that's unfortunate. It would help us to gauge how far she could have gone. Okay, so on the flip side of all of this, there are a few things that are a bit odd for one reason or another. The first is that when Sandra was last seen, she was apparently barefoot. Her sandals were left behind and picked up by another witness. This is a bit of a problem because it would be incredibly difficult to traverse a long distance in this area without proper footwear. If Sandra was barefoot, it would seriously limit her ability to get very far, which makes it that much more surprising that she was never found. I suppose it's always possible that she was carrying an extra pair of shoes. She was seen carrying around a bag of clothes while she was barefoot, so who knows what was in there. But then again, searchers did discover some barefoot prints in the dirt while they were searching this region. So maybe she was wearing shoes, but maybe she wasn't. We really don't know. One other odd aspect of this case is obviously the reported ghost sighting of Sandra about a year after her disappearance. This is certainly an unusual thing we don't see very often. The description of the sighting itself is a bit spooky, but in reality, what are we really talking about here, and how serious is it? We have a young 3-year-old kid who says that he saw a strange ghost-like person in a field, and the person needed help. Apparently, she was laying face down with her legs up in the air. I'm not exactly sure what the child means by that either, so it was a difficult thing to try and draw, but this is what I imagined he meant. There are a few problems, which might not be the right word. Let's say there are a few inaccuracies regarding this sighting. For example, the child's mother, Victoria, said that her son gave her a detailed description of the woman's hair and clothing that was identical to the description of Sandra Hughes when she went missing. But let's look at what this description was. She has a black shirt, blue jeans, and blue hair. And then Victoria says that this is the exact description of Sandra when she went missing. But I don't think it is. There is no indication that Sandra was ever seen wearing a black shirt or jeans around the time that she disappeared. The best description we have of Sandra's clothing during the last sightings in July is that she was wearing a multicolored dress or skirt and a t-shirt. And sure, she could have changed into something else, that's entirely possible. But if that's the case, then nobody knows what she was wearing when she disappeared. In the end, Victoria was wrong to say that her son gave the exact description of Sandra when she went missing. In fact, we can't even know for certain that Sandra had blue hair at the time. Friends and family said that she had dyed her hair blue when they had last seen her, but that was a long time ago. None of the witnesses who saw Sandra around the time she disappeared described her as having blue hair. And frankly, if she did have blue hair, then I would think that would be a very prominent and noticeable feature. It's something that would stand out, that witnesses would remember if they saw it. Yet nobody ever mentioned that when describing her. This would lead me to believe that her hair had returned to its natural brown color around the time of her disappearance. So much of the description of the ghost sighting feels kind of inaccurate. The last inaccuracy from the family is their claim that Sandra disappeared within a 5-mile radius of their location near Shut-Eye Peak. In reality, Brophy Meadow is over 12 miles away from Shut-Eye Peak. So Sandra's ghost would be showing up pretty far from the area where she was last seen. In the end, the child's sighting of Sandra's spirit is just that, a strange sighting. I can't prove nor disprove it. Maybe it all really happened that way. I tried to contact the family. I sent a message to both parents, but I didn't get a response. It will remain a strange aspect of this case. Moving on, we don't need to rehash all the psychic stuff in this case, but the ghost sighting did lure a medium to that location at Shut-Eye Peak. That psychic, much like the one we talked about earlier, also believed that Sandra was murdered. I don't know why, but it seems so common for psychics to say that missing people were murdered by a serial killer. Why is it so rare to have a psychic say that someone died from dehydration or something? Anyway, The Shut-Eye Peak psychic saw that some mysterious man was carrying Sandra's body over his shoulder while walking down a forest road. I think these psychics have seen too many movies or something. These supposed killers always end up carrying the bodies over some great distance to bury it somewhere else. But again, carrying 150 pounds over your shoulder for a long period of time is really difficult. It's the kind of thing that someone without much real-world experience would say. And if the killer is walking on a road with a dead body on their shoulder, they're also really stupid. But I guess that goes without saying. So despite the multiple psychic claims in this case, there was no indication that Sandra met with foul play. None whatsoever. I could never rule it out of the case completely, but it's not near the top of the list of possibilities on this one. All indications in this case point to Sandra Hughes having a deteriorating mental health situation, which eventually led her to crash her car and wander out into the Sierras. Her remains are likely still out there somewhere, waiting to be found. But let me know what you think about this case. Did a serial killer get to her while she was wandering around a remote meadow? Did the body get carried a great distance to some remote location outside the search area? I'd be interested to hear your comments below. And until next time, thanks for watching.